Greetings, and welcome back to the MCOC Encyclopedia. Today, we will be continuing our journey into Act 6. This will be the second in hopefully 24 videos covering the entire Act, and should give you everything that you need to know to beat every quest. We won't be going for 100%, and I will just be covering the paths that are the easiest. If multiple paths are an option, I will cover them all. Remember that these are just what I found easier, and your roster and experiences may vary. Act 6, Chapter 1, Quest Number 1, Tentative Steps. Congratulations! You've just finished Act 5, beaten Ultron, and are now looking at Act 6 and the push for Cavalier. You would have thought there would be a nice quest to ease you into it, but you couldn't be further from the truth. 6.1.1 has arguably one of the most punishing global nodes in all of 6.1, and making a mistake here is going to be costly. Remember that as this is Act 6 and beyond, only 5-star and higher champions are allowed. No more bringing in that 4-star Heimdall. So let's have a look at this global then. No retreat. There are a few nodes in the game that work in a similar way. Dash back twice too quickly, and something happens. But no retreat is the first one you come across, and is by far the most punishing. If you dash back, a short, harmless timer starts. If the timer expires, nothing happens, and you're fine. If you dash back again though, during this timer, you will suffer a degeneration effect for 5 seconds. Note that whilst you're degenerating, you cannot trigger either timer, so it is safe to dash back as much as you need to. This degeneration will deal a total of anywhere from 4,500 to 5,500 damage, depending on the defender, as the damage is based on their attack value. The easiest way to know how much damage you'll take, roughly, is just to look at the defender's attack value. This Moon Knight has an attack value of 4,706, and we can see here that the degen ticks for 471, 10 ticks total, and this adds up. A useful rough estimate. This is not affected by class advantage or disadvantage, the damage is same throughout. The simplest way then to deal with the no retreat is just to not dash back too much. This can be an issue though if you need to dex a special attack or just to bait one out in the first place. Let's have a look at a few ways around it. Firstly, just don't dex the special. Your muscle memory might be screaming at you to do so, but just block it. Yes, you'll take some extra block damage, but it is pretty much always going to be less than the damage you would take from the degen. Champions with good block proficiency or high base health pools will help here, but are by no means essential. Next are champions that can regenerate. This allows them to negate any of the degenerated damage by recovering that health via their regens. Or, if you slip up, you get the same effect. I used 5-star rank 4 X23 when I first did this quest a long time ago. Finally, there are currently 5 champions that can get resistance to degeneration effects. Null has 40% constantly, which isn't huge but can certainly help. Hulk, now he's been buffed, will gain up to 90% resistance based on his missing health though. Risky, but can be effective. Moondragon has 30% degen resistance at base, which increases to 80% in her psionic transcendence mode. Spider-Ham has 15% resistance for each nonsense charge he has. As these stack up to 10, he can gain over 100% resistance. And finally, Mr. Negative, that gains 40% degen resistance for each unique debuff the opponent is suffering. And when awakened, he can actually heal while he is degenerating. Mr. Negative does have an odd playstyle if you've looked into him, and if you want to get the most out of him, but you really don't need to follow that here. Your Special 2 will inflict 2 different debuffs, giving you 80% resistance, and even at low sig, you'll be able to out-heal the rest of the damage. The other way around no retreat is to use champions that can lower the defender's ability accuracy. This has to be offensive ability accuracy, as defensive ability accuracy only triggers when you strike the opponent. My favourite to use here is Awakened Archangel, as with between 2 or 4 Neuros, depending on his sig level, you can completely shut off the node and dash back as much as you like. So which path would be best to take? Looking over each one, we can see that they all have their own annoyances. Down and right, we've got All or Nothing Symbiote Supreme, Static Blast Domino. Down and left, we have Mordo, Do You Bleed Hawkeye, Aggression Fury Hulk. Left and down, we've got Kinetic Transference Cable, Masochism Magneto, and so on. I have covered Masochism in my 5.2.4 video, if you want to go for 100% later on. The path I would recommend is up and left, Agent Venom into Red Skull. Looking at this, you might say, but Agent Venom is really annoying with his shrug-offs, and Red Skull can kill me instantly with his specials on the node. And you would be right. So why this path? Well, it is due to where these two annoyances are placed on the paths and the nodes themselves. Agent Venom and Red Skull are the first two fights on the path, meaning if you lose champions, mess up, whatever, you can go in and out without having to dump resources into it. If, for example, we went right and up, so Elektra into Morningstar, those two aren't too bad. But then we've got Caustic Temper Archangel, Bane Punisher, and then Bishop. If we took this path, we would be weakened when we need our champions the most. Going back to Red Skull path, after the first two, the only real issue is that Punisher 2099 and his block damage. And Gambit can heal a bit from the node as well. Nothing that major. Agent Venom is also a pretty good training place for No Retreat, because if you can work with it against him, you should be fine in most places. Also, Red Skull's insta-kill mechanic from the Aspect of Death node only works on successful hits. Blocked ones are perfectly safe. Finally, do remember to bring a villain for him, or a champion that doesn't rely on power, as you won't be able to gain any on that node. The boss in this quest is Sabretooth, not a great threat by himself, though the nodes can make him annoying. Not only do we still have No Retreat to deal with, but the other major nodes on Sabretooth are Indomitable and Oscillate. Indomitable just means that we can't reverse his regeneration, though we can still block it out or remove it. Oscillate, however, is a little more complex. Sabretooth will switch between two modes, offensive and defensive, based on a timer. When in his offensive phase, he will gain a large attack bonus, and when in his defensive phase, he will gain a major armor and crit resistance buff, hurting your damage quite a lot. What isn't written here is that in his offensive phase, he will play very aggressively, he'll be dashing at you and he will love to throw his specials, and in his defensive phase, he will dash back a lot and hold block. Kind of annoying, but there isn't really much we can do about any of this, apart from know that it is coming. Watch the timer and know to play around it. Luckily for us, the offensive large damage bonus, as well as any of Sabretooth's furies, don't affect the No Retreat damage. It's constant throughout. Your best options here are big tech champions that can deal with his regeneration. In my personal opinion, Nimrod is the number one answer, with Warlock and Omega Sentinel closely behind in second and third. A few honourable mentions for the quest in general are Hercules. When he's awakened, he's super overpowered and can do pretty much anything. Ghost. If you are able to medium light after you phase a hit, you can avoid the degen timer mostly. Bring Hood if you're worried about the timer still, as you'll be able to then phase large chunks of the damage. Kitty Pryde, particularly if you can fit the Tigress synergy. Very easy openings, and you can avoid large chunks of the degen damage if you take it. Dr. Doom I find particularly effective here, as once you've reached the special 3, the fight is basically over. You can simply Doom cycle them, without really having to worry about dashing back at all. Finally, any champion with a parry-heavy style of play, or a champion with a low amount of hits. This will reduce the amount of power the opponent gains, and you can deal large amounts of damage with No Retreat coming up less. You can go parry, heavy, dash back, parry, heavy, dash back, and so on. You won't have to worry about spacing, and their power gain will be minimal. Think Archangel, Colossus, Omega Red, so on here. So what would my ideal team look like? When designing a team for this quest, the pain points I'm looking to counter are Agent Venom, Red Skull, No Retreat, and Sabretooth the boss. For Agent Venom, I would advise bringing Apocalypse, due to him mostly stopping Agent Venom from shrugging off debuffs. Apocalypse reduces the shrug off chance by 100%, but Agent Venom does have a little bit of extra ability accuracy here, so the chance is still there. Bishop, OG Storm, and Storm Pyramid X will convert any shrugged stuns into passive stuns that he then can't shrug off, and failing that, a White Magneto pre-fight with any metal or hero attacker works well, as this will convert your normal debuff stuns from your parry into passives, which Agent Venom can't shrug off. Archangel and White Magneto would be an excellent combination here. For Red Skull, I would simply bring any big cosmic villain and play super carefully during his specials. Anyone can do this fight though. Null would work well here if you value his resistance, as would Venompool. His regen with all of Red Skull's armor ups is insane. Personally, I have a soft spot for Venompool, and in this situation, I value the regen from his special 1 more than Null's resistance. Null is still a very good option here, and in the worst case scenario, you can just use Ronan and stun cheese him if the corner, if you have one at a decent sig. Don't have to dash back at all. For Sabretooth the boss, as I said earlier, I'd bring Nimrod. Warlock and Omega Sentinel are other good replacements, as are any decent damaging tech. Looking over the rest of the path, we have a lot of tech defenders, so maybe another Cosmic, and I would also bring Cable to support Apocalypse. Cable and his parry-heavy playstyle will also allow for an easier time managing no retreat. So my personal ideal team would be Apocalypse, Cable, Venompool, Nimrod, and then a flexible slot, though I would probably bring in a Cosmic here. Hercules, Hulkling, Cosmic Ghost Rider, etc. And this is how I would use them down the path. For Agent Venom, it would be Apocalypse. Red Skull, Venompool. For Iron Patriot, Venompool or my other Cosmic. For both Punisher 2099 and Nebula, I'd probably use my other Cosmic. For Gambit, I'd use Apocalypse or Cable. And for the boss, I would use Nimrod, but we have the entire team as backup. Every single one of these champions we can use against the boss. So that's it. Everything you need to know to clear 6.1.1 and start your quest to Cavalier. Up next, 612. As always, remember though that this is story content. It's not going anywhere. If you get stuck here, which a lot of people do, and find yourself spending lots of resources, stop and focus on something else. The monthly event quest is a great place to pick up more materials, shards, and units. You may want to consider Arena, and the Battleground store is always an excellent place to pick up other resources. Fairly soon after this video goes out, I will try and get up a short commentated video of me going through the path with the exact team I suggest above. It will be much more relaxed and should hopefully give you some more insights into how I look at getting around these issues. If you have any questions, please do leave them down below, as I do try and respond to everybody, and please do all the other YouTube stuff, you know what I mean. Thank you, and I will see you next time.